Good afternoon, folks. This is Carl, your ticker guy, coming at you from Niceville, Florida. Earlier this morning, I recorded a video where I lambasted Henry Paulson and Ben Bernanke's plan to bail out the American financial system. So they claim $700 billion, which is a lie. Unprecedented powers, the ability to prevent you from going to court if he happens to screw you, which he almost assuredly will. But it's not fair to criticize someone's plan without offering one in reply. In truth, what I have been offering has been in the hands of the Senate now for several months. The most voluminous version of it was faxed to all 535 members of Congress, both in the House and Senate, in a white paper a few months ago. Last night, I faxed another document to the Senate Banking Committee, which I am releasing on the web. You can find it by looking in presentations under www.tickerforum.org, where this video will be linked as well. I urge you to go there. I urge you to look at this. I urge you to pull that document up, and I urge you to circulate it. Then I urge you to get on the phone and call Congress, because this is a solution, folks, a real solution. Not we hate Ben and we hate Hank. This is an answer. This is how we prevent financial Armageddon. This is how we save our nation. It has three pieces. Number one, all level 3 assets must be disclosed in full. Starting with the current reporting period, which is now coming up. Every 10Q and 10K must include all level 3 assets delineated by individual asset and exactly how its value was determined. I need to be able to pick up my trusty HP12C right here and run that calculation and come up with the same number that is listed in your 10K and 10Q. That has to happen immediately and continue in perpetuity. The American people, investors, both here and abroad, need to be able to look at every single company on the S&P 500, the Wilshire 5000, and everywhere else and figure out whether or not what they claim they hold as assets really are, and if so, what are they worth. Number two, all over-the-counter derivatives must be moved to a public exchange. The reason for this is not to make sure that we know how many there are. The reason for this is that on a public exchange there's an intermediary, much like we have with the Options Clearing Corporation for equity markets, and that is the counterparty to all of your trades. That firm is responsible for making you good in the event that you have a trade that has to be paid off. As a result, they are absolute rabid dogs about margin supervision and capital adequacy of the people who are writing those contracts. No ifs, no ands, no buts, no maybes. Hank Paulson does not like this, because if he goes after this, it means that his buddies can't play the arbitrage game of selling someone a credit default swap for $100,000 and then finding someone else to buy one from for the same thing for 90 grand, pocketing $10,000 for doing nothing other than picking up 2 telephones. This is a fraud upon the public, and it needs to go away. The only way that we can defuse this ticking nuclear weapon is to prove capital adequacy. You give everybody 90 days to do this. For those derivatives that are not on an exchange within 90 days, the answer is they are void. You say, well, how can you do that? Well, that's very simple. Contract law requires 3 elements. Number 1, a meeting of the minds. We got that. Number 2, consideration. There's a little problem. We'll get back to that in a second. The third is performance. All right. The problem with consideration is if you don't have the money to pay, you don't have consideration. So you have 90 days to prove that you have the capacity to make good on your contracts, and the way you do that is by moving them onto the public exchange. If not, they are declared void. The person who bought it is out the money that they spent in premium, and they're free to sue the writer to get that premium back. During this 90-day transition period, people will probably replace those contracts that they don't believe will be fulfilled, and that's perfectly fine. We will permanently snip the fuse on the over-the-counter derivatives bomb by doing this, and it will be done and over with by the end of the year. It needs to happen now. Number 3, leverage. No more than 12 to 1. In 2004, the SEC allowed broker-dealers to be exempt from that requirement. It has been out there for a long time. It was perfectly good, and it kept our financial system safe. It needs to come back right now. We'll give you 6 months to get your leverage back down to 12 to 1. You must take off 1/6 of the excess, and you must disclose via a filing in SEC's EDGAR every month what your leverage ratio is if it is over 12 to 1 until it is down underneath. No games, no gimmicks, no BS, no nonsense. commercial paper, swaps, sweeps, whatever have you, all of them count. 8% reserves, 12 to 1 maximum leverage, end of discussion. Banks, broker-dealers, insurance companies, the whole 9 yards. You want to be in our markets, that's the price. You have 6 months, and you have to report every month where you are above that. From that point forward, once you go under 12 to 1, if you get within 10% of it, you must immediately file an SEC document on Edgar documenting the fact that you have gotten within that 10%, and if you exceed it, you're subject to enforcement action. All right, folks. Now, if we take these steps, we immediately defuse all 3 of the ticking nuclear weapons that are sitting on America's balance sheet right now. We restore confidence. That is the key in order to prevent a meltdown. Mr. Paulson and Mr. Bernanke, their plan does not restore confidence. Part of the reason AIG and Lehman Brothers went down is because they essentially destroyed the market for preferred and common stock after Fannie and Freddie by taking them over by fiat. After coming out just a month earlier and making proclamations that they were well capitalized and well within regulatory capital limits, what we discovered is you can't buy stock in any financial because they had assets that were obviously marked at a place that was inappropriate. The problem now becomes every other company in the United States is subject to the same problem. And what Ben and Hank intend to do with this $700 billion is 100 times worse, because in that legislation is language that gives him the ability to direct any financial company to follow his orders, whether they like it or not. And they can't sue him. That's also in there. So there's nothing they can do to stop whatever it is. So if you hold stock in one of those firms, any financially related company or debt, you can't hold it past 9:31 a.m. Monday morning, because you do not know when King Paulson is going to come and steal your investment by fiat declaration. This is unacceptable, folks. This is going to make the problem 100 times worse than it already is. The reason we had to deal with Fannie and Freddie was because this wasn't dealt with after Bear Stearns blew up. We didn't force the leverage out of the system. We didn't force disclosure of level 3 assets and marks, and we didn't get the derivatives off the over-the-counter market. Lehman Brothers and AIG have now blown up for the same reason, because Fannie and Freddie actually added more stress instead of taking it out, and what Hank and Ben want to do now is going to make it even worse. Folks, you got a plan here. Get on the phone, tell the Senate. Senate Banking Committee was sent copies of this. I hand-signed every one of them. That letter is now published on the web. In addition to this plan being in there, there is an offer from me to get on an airplane, fly to Washington, D.C., and testify under oath as to why I believe this is the only way it's going to work, and that I have no conflicts of interest. I am not short the market. I stand to make nothing from this solution other than being able to invest with confidence in America and our future. It is your job as Americans to pass this video around, to make it go viral, to get people to flood the phones, to get people to do what they need to. We won't get another shot at this, folks. The level of instability has grown dramatically with every one of these interventions. This is likely to be the last one we're going to get. Act today. Preserve America's financial system.